My very first memory in this life is a lukewarm day in spring and the smell of grass and my hand touching the rough surface of a cherry tree. But well, yeah, let's kind of start at the beginning, which would be my birth. My mother didn't want a premise, so I was just there, and she had a hard time dealing with it. That had consequences, so she gave a premature birth to me over 3 months. Right after being born, I was already on the verge of death, but no, I didn't want to die like that, so I just didn't. My grandfather once told me about the time after my birth. The first weeks I had to be inside of an incubator, except for a few visits by my father. I was all alone there. My mother did not come to see me at all. The light was never shut down. There was a bright light from above all the time. Maybe that is why I hate too bright light even now and prefer nighttime. I don't know. So when the day came when I was finally able to get home, no one really wanted to take me, so I kinda lived between my parents and grandparents. My mother had always been very distant to me. It was a pathological, so she was not able to feel something like true love or emotions. I always had to provide a kind of a value to get affection. My father was very different. He even got used to me and started to love me. In my early childhood, then the best thing happened to me. I met my best and closest friend. As a child, I was always more interested in animals than in people, which was also reciprocal, I think. But the animals always seemed to understand me, and I understood them pretty well. I literally learned how to feel and express love and affection from my dog. It must have been around kindergarten time when I learned about socializing with others, and I really loved it. I remember all the children wanted to play with me because I always had really cool ideas for games. Maybe this is the route for becoming a pirate captain later. At the age 3 or 4, I was already able to properly read because I love comics and I wanted to know what they are saying, and I was too impatient to wait for school to start. At that time, my goal was to become a vet, and not even some random vet. I wanted to become the superhero for pets. A bit cringy, but it was my dream. Mentioned before, my mother was suffering from a personality disorder, which sooner or later led to my father dealing with it through alcohol and drug abuse. So it started slowly but became very dangerous soon. My father was always very physically strong, and alcohol made him a very violent man. It's hard to imagine, but the terror was every day. Violence, neglect, and abuse and humiliation shifted into normality. Let me get this straight. A lot of memories from my childhood and teenage age are simply being blocked by my psyche, but there are time periods I simply have no access to. It's like a white noise. I'm here and I wanted to tell some things from my story in the vague hope to give others strength and hope. The situation worsened at home, and eventually my mother moved out. Every day was just terrible. So it eventually made me to be a rather weird kid growing up, in constant fear, walking on eggshells, and not being loved and wanted at all. So yeah, the school became increasingly a terrible experience at that time. First of all, the exhaustion of the past day was very hard to hide in class. I was pretty underweight and small, wearing worn-out clothes and rather silent, which made me a target for bullies at school. And they would bully me literally for everything. I had to cover my arms and skin because of the bruises from the beatings at home. Because of that, I couldn't attend to the school's physical education, which ended in the teacher calling my father and eventually my father punishing me for not attending. So, yeah, it's an irony. So I kind of had to fight against a lot of injustice all my life. So I began to live withdrawn in thoughts and created landscapes and sceneries in my imagination, like white prairies crossed by a soft wind in autumn. So I also started to sketch little pictures of animals. As a child, I never had the interest in drawing anything else but animals. It were mostly little sketches of wolves and anatomical practice of canines, horses, cats, all the animals you would think of. So it was also my dream to become a veterinarian, so I studied a lot of books about the topics, and I mean a lot. It was around middle school, yeah. There were a lot of times which I remember as a particular injustice. Several times in the tests I solved some mathematical exercises easily, but my math teacher did not believe I could come up with a solution by myself and accused me in cheating, giving me an F. Ironically, a bit later I was tested as a gifted in mathematical subjects by a guest teacher, so he invited me to a private school where I could even get a stipendia. But when I think of it now, it would have been such a blessed chance to escape the hell at home. Despite that, my mother did not allow me to move away. In a retrospective, I think it had something to do with her disorder, and she just could not. It was like a punishment for her if I would have any success that she didn't have, something like that. I would never and under no circumstances ever talk to anyone what happened at home. Not only because I was scared, but also because I wanted to protect my parents, especially my father, because since my mother always was so distant to me, he was the closest person to me after all, so I wanted to honor that. Looking back, it is insane and ridiculous, but as a child and a young teenager, I thought it was an act of bravery, something good. It's definitely not. Since I was born, I had always been rather introverted, but it segregated even more during this time. I started to listen to rather gloomy grunge music, and at the age of 15 I got my first job at an industrial hall. I had to clean the workers' break room and sanitary areas. Let me tell you, it was disgusting. The workers at there behaved like pigs. Knowing that someone else had to clean after them. Maybe it was funny for them, I don't know, but sometimes they literally shat on the floor inside the stalls of the bathroom instead of into the toilet. Not to mention they pissed everywhere. I worked there for several hours after school each day. It was tough work, but I saved up for finally being able to buy an electric guitar. I hid the money in my drawer, but when I came home one day my room was messed all over, and the drawer was empty. It was not the first time my father stole money from me for buying alcohol, but I was so angry that I even yelled at him, which was not a good idea. Sometimes I think if I was just more lovely, if I would have given him a reason to stop drinking, maybe he could have changed. But yeah, he didn't have the reason. I was not enough, so yeah. Well, one time when he was very sorry after beating me, he went to the guitar shop and brought me a brand new black Stratocaster guitar. I couldn't imagine that happening. I was so happy, and there was even a little amp included in the starter set with the cables and everything. It's low quality, but I was happy at that time. I didn't care about the quality of gear. So even without ever touching such a guitar, I knew already about how to play, so I could finally strum some chords. Music was finally brought into my life, and I could feel the pain leaving my body literally. Up to this day in the present, I'm thankful for this gift sincerely. I still have this guitar, even if though I never play it anymore. It's sleeping a slumber that I don't even want it to be awakened from. During this time I spent every free moment drawing and playing guitar. I love to create, and I wanted to tell stories about strong characters who fight against injustice. I wanted to portray my introverted view on empathy and kindness that I have learned from my beloved dog. I learned new friends who were interested in the same things and stayed home less and less, which did really good to me. During the time from 15 to 16, I developed my skills for starting my career as a professional artist eventually. And I wanted to become a mangaka and a rock star. And why? Because deep inside I wanted to be a voice for those who can speak for themselves. Something that I especially often get asked is why I'm covering my face with my hair or my bangs, so this is maybe a good opportunity to talk about it. First of all, deep inside I feel like human trash, unwanted for reasons you might understand now after watching this video. And then because there was a cut from grass in my eye from an event when my father punched my head and face through a grass table. a glass shot pierced my cornea, which was literally unbearable. I screamed from pain. At the hospital, I had to fold my swollen eyelid to even get a look at it, and it was the worst. I don't remember much what happened after, but I had to wear a dressing and lay down an eye patch for a long time, and after that I got used to cover my eye with hair since the redness never completely disappeared. Now at that area where there was a scratch, there's still an accumulation of veins, and it really hurts to put in contact lenses. Yeah. Then there was that moment that would change my life forever. For the first time in my entire life, I felt understood. Music was not only sound. Music is vibes that are even able to carry emotions through space and time. But I will never forget the moment I listened to my favorite band. It gave me hope that even I, who was never wanted or worth something, could be accepted as I am. This was also the time when I finally decided that this was my purpose in life. I wanted to leave images, sounds, and meanings into this world. Not for myself, but for others. I wanted to become an artist, telling stories by writing novels, drawing manga, or even composing songs. For me, the media never made a difference, as even learned a non-verbal way of loving from my dog in early life. Believe it or not, but all my stories have a truth within their core. Somewhere, somewhen, it all existed. So, whatever it would take, I was willing to sacrifice for my goal in creating the story I was born to create. I worked hard on my skills, relentless, went away from my abusive home, quit school, focused only on that goal. And it didn't take long until my first stories were born. They were weak yet, as I certainly lacked of skill, but I always knew that someday I would create something great. So, I'm struggling with so many trauma from my childhood and youth every day, mentally and even physically, since some things never healed probably. But despite all that, I'm happy every day that I'm able to draw and create. Making this video was incredibly hard for me, but I hope that it can leave some value to someone, and if it reaches even only one person out there struggling, it's enough. So thank you very much, everyone. I'm looking very forward to create new stuff for you. Take care, stay safe, and much love. Bye bye.